Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. For those listening who are in Perth, Australia, beautiful area with a glistening ocean, clear, lovely, where you can look out upon Gaia itself and pause in the wonder and the spectacular sights and views that are here. Dear ones, there are so many human beings who are asking the same questions. This is a time of changing energy. And as the energy starts to shift, reality itself is being questioned. Humans who have lived a certain way all of their lives are starting to look at themselves and saying, what do I feel that is different? We have spoken so many times about the shift, about the new consciousness which is coming, and who it is who will make the difference on this planet. And the who it is are the ones who are listening to the words right now. There is a shift coming that is unexpected. Not frightening, just unexpected. And we've never really talked about it in this way before. So I'll just tell you, it is one thing called dimensional shift. And for you to understand any of this, I have to start at the beginning. I'm going to discuss dimensions. And you would say, well, that's not very spiritual. Really? We'll see. If you were a single dimensional person in one, you'd be on a piece of paper and you'd go in one direction. And that would be your perception, period. Couldn't do anything else. If you add 2 dimensions to it, suddenly you can go another direction on that flat piece of paper. And that's your perception. And if somebody told you about a concept of up or down, you'd laugh at them, because that's not in the purview of your consciousness. It's not anything that people do. If you're in 3 dimensions, suddenly you're on a globe instead of a piece of paper, and you have up and down, back and forth. Now you're far more free. You look backwards into the 1 and the 2, and you say, well, that was silly and stupid to think I could only go in one direction in a piece of paper. Now I know better. Now I'm in 3. If you add the 4th, it's a little more esoteric, a little more brainy. It's about time. So the 4th dimension was one that lets you then start measuring things and know about the time it takes to do things. You have the concept of time. And there you are. And there is where you have been, and that's where, and I'll say it, you've been stuck. Now you'll say, wait a minute. We were born into 4. This is what humans do. This is what is normal for humanity. We're in 4 dimensions. There are those who say, well, what's in the higher dimensions? You see, you cannot go there with your mind. Intellectual, you can't go there. You think you can, but no more than the 1 on the piece of paper could go into the globe. Can you go into 5, 6, 7, 8? Because you just don't even know what they are. You have no idea. How many dimensions is God in? You might ask. God, Spirit, creative source, whatever name you wish for that where you came from. God is in all dimensions. All right? Follow my logic, because I have something to tell you. Scientists, and it hasn't been lately, have known now for over 2 decades that certain things around you are multidimensional, way beyond 4. And they're head scratchers. They don't understand them. But they started to discover, as they looked at atomic structure, that lo and behold, many, many dimensions were in every single atom. The atoms in the chair that you sit in, the atoms in the body that you reside in. All atomic structure, therefore, was multidimensional. Scientists could identify 11 or 12, but that told them there were probably an infinite number of dimensional possibilities in every single atom on the planet. What are you made of? And the answer is multidimensional atoms. Where is God? God is in every single dimension in all of them. Where are you? Number 4. How can that be? What is it then that would determine dimensional awareness? And what does it mean to be in a higher dimension? It's so interesting. You have to honor the concept of linearity. Humans are linear, multidimensional things are not. The only way that I can show this to you is to give you something very simple. How long is a piece of string? You will say, well, let me get out my measuring stick, and you will measure it, and you will tell me. How long does someone live? You will have the clock, and you will measure that. The concept of linearity is that every single thing, including life, must have a beginning and an end. That is linearity. And if you sit there and say, well, isn't that reality? I will tell you, no, it is not. That is your reality in 4 dimensions. Everything has to have a beginning and an end. So you start asking questions about yourself, your soul. Isn't it interesting that this planet, as an agreement of one God, that all humans will have a soul, whatever that means, and that the soul would continue even after the human dies. So there is the acknowledgement that a soul is apart from the 4 dimensions and seemingly goes and goes and goes, and yet no one is questioning what happened before you got here. How long is your soul? How old is your soul? In a linear fashion, there has to be a beginning and an end. What about that piece of string? Let's say we take that piece of string and we tie it together. Now it's a loop. How long is the string? The answer is you cannot measure it now because it's in a loop. So does that mean it's unmeasurable? No. So how long is the loop? And the answer is infinitely long. It's forever. Now, when you start to apply that to other things, perhaps that are living, including that which your soul, it starts to then twist your mind just a little. And you say, how does that really work? And the answer is, it works well. Your soul is forever. That which is in your body is part of that multidimensional atomic structure that it always was and always will be. And yet that's not how you see it, because that's just a little too strange. Is your soul inside your body or is it outside? And how big is it? All linear questions that cannot be answered in a linear way. Here's another example you may like or not. Let's say you have a wristband of some kind. And let's say that wristband can be removed. A pair of scissors will remove it. Let's say there's an ant crawling on the band. The ant is crawling on the outside, then maybe the ant will crawl on the inside. And so when you say, where are you, ant? It'll say on the outside or on the inside. You realize the ant really can't be on the inside and the outside at the same time, now could it? Take that band and cut it with scissors. Take it and twist it 1/2 and tape it back together. And now when the ant crawls on that, it's called a Mobius strip. And the ant is on the outside and the inside, all at the same time. Dear ones, that is simply a simple Simon way of telling you that multidimensionality is something that you have a very difficulty understanding. Kryon, why are you telling this? I will tell you the next step. What is it that determines the dimension you're in? Did you ever ask that? If you walk around with full dimensionality in your atomic structure, what is it that keeps you in four? Let me take you somewhere beautiful. In this society, one of the major prophets you would have, you call the Master of Love. The Master of Love walked this planet 2,000 years ago. And he was different. This human being was multidimensional. Wherever he walked, he would encounter those perhaps who were sick. And when he touched them, they weren't sick anymore. It's been told that the grass grew under his feet as he walked, and animals followed him. There's report after report that he had control over physics, that he could make things out of nothing and change things from one to another. In all of this beauty, a four-dimensional human being had one reaction: fear. To them it was magic, and you know what happened eventually. You might be interested in the healing part, for we've not really discussed this much, but you should hear this. Are other things that are alive on the planet also having specific dimensionality? Yes. Funny you should ask. Would a virus have a dimensional perception? After all, it's alive. And the answer is yes. It's a 3D entity. It doesn't even know about time. In that way, it's stupid. It will infect a host and live on the host, not understanding that in time it will kill itself. Now along comes a multidimensional human being, infusing a higher dimensional perception onto a diseased person, and the disease cannot exist in a higher dimension, and the disease dies. There are so many human beings who have for a moment slipped out of their four-dimensional pattern. Either in euphoria or in fear, they have gone past that four-dimension, and for a few moments their whole body rang with a multidimensional which is timeless, and the disease in them shattered because it could not stay in a high-dimensional place. Dear ones, there'll come a time when humanity moves past four dimensions, and there will be no disease because it's a three-dimensional entity. What was it that determined four or beyond? And the answer is consciousness. Consciousness is the motivator, the ruler, the changer of dimensionality in humans. I have told you repeatedly that if you start to become a compassionate human being, if you start to understand the profundity of the love of God, that it starts to move you dimensionally. It moves you, dear ones, past four into that place that you can't count anymore. You get off of that peg and you feel it and you know it. I've changed and I don't know why. And we told you what the results would be. You wouldn't age as much. Isn't it interesting that dimensional perception will take you off the clock? What scientist was it who told you that your fourth dimension, being time, is variable? It was Einstein. What would happen if you move into a dimensionality where there is no time, or the time is different? Your body then won't age. What human being do you know that was written about that you all have a name? Abraham. This man, he was talking to God. He was talking also to multiple angels. He was getting instructions, and he lived for 900 years. There are those who say, well, that has to be a typo in the Bible. It isn't. He lived 900 years because this man had to be multidimensional to do what he did, to be who he was. At the beginning, dear ones, it was different. So I want you to understand, what is it that changes dimensions within you? And it's your consciousness. The master of love, multidimensional, high consciousness, even controlled physics. That's what multiple That's what compassion does. That's what happens when you have compassion that you can't even measure. That's what happens when you have an individual who's so compassionate they can feel every human being around them all the time. In a very good and positive way, and not a way that would disable them. In a way where they can think about good things and it would be broadcast to others who would receive the good things. That's the master of love. That's a multidimensional human being. I'll tell you something I've never said before. Right now on this planet, there are people who can make things out of nothing with their hands, with high consciousness in very special places. Right now on this planet, there are those who can sit in midair. You call it levitation and you laugh. They're doing it. Why is that possible? What are they doing? How could it be? And I will tell you, it is the perception of the consciousness that you're in. It is the change of human nature into a very beautiful, beautiful paradigm that you are barely starting to touch, called infinite love and infinite compassion. It's going to slow down your aging. It's going to make you a person that wakes up compassionate and doesn't worry about time. Understanding that there's something bigger than you ever thought, your soul. You become closer to your soul the higher you get in your perception of dimension. And in that, dear ones, the higher you get and closer to your very soul, the longer you live. The less the disease will attach itself. The more people who will look at you and say, I don't know what you have, but I want it. They will see balance and they will see love. They will see caring. This is the new human. Be aware that dimensionality, you're moving into other dimensions. And I will not call it 5 or 6. Because dimensionality becomes unlinear when you pass 4. And you'll stop asking the questions, how long is a string? You'll stop asking the questions, how big is something? How big is God? If you're part of God, how big are you? You want to know how big your soul is? It's as big as God is. Did you know there are others in other universes who know you? And that would stagger your mind to know how big you are. Not how big your body is, dear ones, but how big that consciousness is that's eternal. That's in every one of you. You are magnificent. I have been coming to this planet now for 30 years. And my message, every time I arrive, don't believe anybody who tells you you're less than magnificent. Don't believe anybody who tells you you're dirty. Because that's not how God sees you. That's how humans see you. Know these things. I'm going to continue this discussion tonight. And so it is.
Let us now enter together in creating our own magical space where we can listen to what Kryon is going to tell us. I invite you to close your eyes. And the reason I ask you to close your eyes is to remove the visual stimulus that's in front. And allow yourself to completely relax into the chair. Relax the top of your head. Relax your shoulders. Relax your arms and your hands. Relax your chest. Relax your back. Relax your abdomen. Relax your thighs. Relax your knees. Relax your calves. Relax your feet. And feel all the tension drain and melt and disappear out of your body. And allow your feet to connect with the energy of the earth. Feel the benevolence that our planet has. Push up through the ground, through your feet, enter into your body. Feel that nurturing love, the delicious warmth of our Mother Earth, pressing its benevolent, loving energies into your heart and wrapping you in a bubble of love. And we give thanks to Gaia, and we give thanks to our ancestors who walked on the earth before us so that we could receive their ancient wisdom and knowledge through the energies of the earth. And allow yourself to lay down a foundation onto the grid and bless the planet. And it's going to be something you will pick up the next time you come, and the next time you come, and the time after that you come again. Available, your own personal storehouse of wisdom, knowledge and information. Because that is how magnificent you are.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. In these moments, my partner steps away as normal so that I can bring you things that he has not heard before and concepts which you deserve to know. This is an extension of the channeling that we gave this morning. We are still in Perth, Australia, for those who are listening at another time. And we continue the discussion of dimensionality. And now we get a little more specific. And now we release information. Some of you will now understand and acknowledge and realize you live in a multi-dimensional world as a single-dimensional human being. We established this morning in review that all atomic structure has multi-dimensions, many. And yet the perception of dimensionality is human and is only 4. We also discussed that there are humans on this planet and have been in history who had a multi-dimensional perception. And in that we told you that the thing that controlled it, the governor of dimensional perception, is consciousness. The higher the consciousness of a human being, the more dimensionally aware they are. It explains so much of why humanity has had a low human nature quotient for so long. Why humanity does not remember wisdom of the past and continues to war. Because you are stuck in the 4, that is the dimensionality of only 4 among so many that are around you. And it leads me to tell you there are things you should know, things that you might even recognize. Let's start with Gaia. Is it possible that the earth itself is more dimensionally aware than you are? And the answer is, of course. There are multidimensional energies all around you. One of them, my favorite, is magnetics. It is multidimensional. Science sees it, can measure it, know what it is, even why it occurs, but you don't understand it. If you did, You'd have electricity forever. Gravity is multidimensional. Gravity itself, we have told you, is an expression, I'll call it a solution of mass and density. Now, you have claimed it, you have seen it, you have measured it, and there are rules around it. How many of you have decided that you can change mass and density? And the answer is almost nobody has ever decided that. You measure it and say it's static, not understanding it's changeable. You're only measuring the default. You can actually design mass. You'll discover this. A higher consciousness will have then revelations in a multidimensional way of inventions yet to come. Light itself is multidimensional. Ask a physicist if light can be in two places at the same time. That will tell you a great deal, because it is, and it can. It is a multidimensionality of its own, light. So here the earth is, generating all manner of dimensional things that are outside of your purview. Or are they? There are places on this planet that we've talked about where dimensionality is a little odd. It causes things to be odd around you. Humans will perceive it. Technology might even perceive it. Where the magnetic grid of this planet and the Gaia grid, the consciousness grid, overlap in odd ways. And when they do, it creates a multidimensional patch, if you want to, that is different from other areas of the planet. We've told you where they are. They're famous. One of them is the Bermuda Triangle, and another one is Ireland. Let me say yet again, don't you find it odd that for hundreds and hundreds of years, Ireland has been known for fairies and little people? And you'll say, well, that is an interesting tradition, is it not? Let me tell you, dear human being, that even the government acknowledges fairies and little people because they're seen occasionally, because they're there. Too many have seen them. Too many have spoken with them for it to be just simply mythology or tradition. Ireland has something special. There is an overlapping of the grids which create a multi-dimensional effect. We even told you that there will be the discovery that crops will grow better there. Food will grow better there. There's even those experimenting with it right now. And here you are in 4 dimensions. Earth creates dimensionality which is far greater than yours. Ask a tree hugger what Gaia has to say to them. Ask an indigenous who is connected with the land and has been for 1,000 years. How does the land communicate with you? And they will give you an answer that is beyond anything that you would ever understand or expect in 4 dimensions. Yes, Gaia itself is multidimensional. And yet, consciousness has always then kept you at 4. What is beyond 4? Well, you'd say, well, of course it's 5. Actually, it's not. Because when you become multidimensional, you become non-linear. Counting itself, the act of counting, is a linear function. So when you become out of 4 dimensions, even slightly, that means you cannot number the next dimension. Some of you understood that. Some of you did not. But here's what I want to tell you. There are some things that almost every mother here will know or have seen. I'm getting there. But first, my partner, who sits in the chair, is on his way tomorrow to Tasmania. You call it Tassie here, and there's a reason. I don't wish to give away anything that might be sensitive or secret, but he has told others. So I'll tell you, we let him see something in Cradle Mountain. He was in a dense rainforest where the green glows like it does in Ireland. In those magic places where Gaia rules, where Gaia is allowed to go free, where Gaia is the king, in those places, there is always things to see. Many have seen them. My partner never does. We have kept these things from him. And the reason is practicality, so that he does not get caught up in things he cannot explain, or goes to places that don't make sense only because he's been drawn there by something unusual. That's the engineering mind. But he saw something in Tassie. He was alone. He was being asked to leave the forest, but he wanted to stay, because out of the corner of his eye, he kept seeing the movement and the lights. And every time he would look at where the lights were, it was almost like they would laugh and move aside. But he knew they were alive. And he knew what he was seeing is what some would call the multidimensional divas of the forest, because, dear ones, Gaia has sentient. Gaia has intelligence. Gaia is your partner. And every so often, Gaia will show itself and say, we're here. That's why he's going back. It spoke to him. And there haven't been many places on this planet who have spoken to him like that. You see, Gaia itself is a multidimensional force. I want to talk to you about something we have never talked about before. When does multidimensionality sink to fore? When humans are born. Question: does it take intelligence and intellect in order to perceive multidimensionality past 4? Answer: it would be better if you didn't have those two, because you'd see it faster. An intellectual will keep a lid on things because they cannot explain them, or because they will intellectualize themselves out of seeing something that may actually be seen by others, because they have to have that which is an explanation. An intellectual will believe that they can think as high as they want to, not understanding that there is a ceiling, a very strong ceiling, on what they can think about. An intellectual will often be the last person to become multidimensional, because they want to explain it away in the biases of 4. When an infant is born on this planet, dear ones, listen to this new information. For the first 6 months, that infant can see multidimensions. The first 6 months. 6 months is how long it takes on average for an infant to assume the consciousness of the parents. It makes a difference between a child with seemingly, you say, well, born happy, or a child perhaps born frustrated. And all their lives, 1s and 2s and 3s, they are disappointed, or they're arguing, or they're mad, and others are happy. Dear ones, it all happens in the first 6 months. They assume that which is going on around them. Their cells pick it all up. The environment then is starting to be understood. The consciousness of those around them, parents or not, is then assumed by the child by the time they have 6 months. But in that period from 0 to 6, dear ones, they are wide open. Mother, how many times have you seen an infant? Do you remember those times? When the infant was before 6 months old, how many times have you watched that infant be focused on something in the corner? And you turn and there's nothing there. You will purchase an interesting toy, perhaps that lights up and makes noises, and they're not interested, because they're looking at the ceiling where something else is happening. And you look at the ceiling and you see nothing at all. The child is aware of multidimensional things, dear ones, because the consciousness has not yet set them into 4. It's classic. New mothers that might come along listening to this, watch for it. Because the child is born wide open. And multidimensionality is seeable. It's almost like they will stare at the multi-revolving colors in the corner of perhaps angelic beings that are saying, "You're fine, remember this, welcome to the planet." And they will love it, and they'll smile at nothing, staring at something that you know they think is there, laughing and giggling, and you look, and it's nothing. They can see it. Now, Mother, you almost knew that, didn't you? There's more. If you take a look at the animal kingdom, I have some news for you. Did you know that certain animals can see your multidimensional Merkaba? Now, there are humans walking around that will approach an animal, and the animal will let them walk right up, just like an old friend. There are others who will walk into the same paddock, and the animal will kick them to say, "I don't want you here." Did you know that? Why would that be, dear ones? Why can you approach even a pet, one that's trained to be a loving friend of a human being, and one human will be accepted and another will be growled at? What's going on? There are certain animals, dear ones, on this planet, big and small, who are aware of the multidimensional thing you call the Merkaba of the human being. That patterning that you carry around, that vehicle you ride in, which is multidimensional. 8 meters wide it is. It can be sensed even by other humans. Have you ever walked into a theater, perhaps, alone, and sat down next to somebody you don't know, and then a moment later you move? And you can't really say why, but you sense something, unbalance, sickness perhaps, and you move. That is the example. Whether they can see it clearly or they sense it, that is a multidimensional question that it goes unanswerable at the moment. But they are aware of the patterning of human beings with compassion. Some of you know about animal whisperers. These are those who can then collaborate with an animal's consciousness. Collaborate. That means that not only can they read what the animal is going through emotionally, but they can then telegraph back to the animal the solution. And you know they exist on this planet. Dear ones, I will tell you that animals will come right up to them because they know they're different and they know they're special. A compassionate person will have a different a greeting from many animals than one who is not. So what am I telling you? I am telling you that animals can see more dimensions than you can. How does that make you feel? Perhaps you would say, well, maybe it's about time that we got busy and saw some more dimensions. Indeed. Indeed. There's even more we could tell you about how dimensionality exists on this planet, is seen by some, is not seen by others. We've already told you about the infants and now the animals. You live in multiple dimensions and you don't know it. You cannot see what many can, what even the animals can see, you cannot see. And that is going to change, dear ones. It's going to change because you are going to start to understand that the consciousness you have will then start to guide your life. And in guiding your life, you're going to find out that as you peek into a multidimensional form, you may not even be aware of it. You may actually be experiencing some multidimensional things and not be aware that that really is it, but you feel better. Perhaps you realize you're not aging as much. Perhaps you're feeling healthier. You're starting to cross a multidimensional barrier. An intellectual will have trouble with that. But one who is compassionate and doesn't ask those questions won't have any trouble at all. When you think about God, the creative source, all that is, you have no trouble whatsoever with God being everywhere at the same time and answering and listening to billions of people talking at once. That's a multidimensional God. But then you have trouble then with when you apply that same idea to yourselves. And that's because you live in 4, dear ones. And yet there is so much more for you here. So where is this going? It goes right to the initial description of what I'm talking about, your soul. Dear ones, your soul is as big as the universe. Your soul has a name that is singable in light by those who could hear those songs. You are temporarily on this planet in a body with a name, but that's not who you are. And what is starting to happen is that you are starting to ally a closer relationship to that which is the real you. A multidimensional soul that has its hand out. It's the higher self. It's always invited you to come along to something grander and bigger and greater. We've given you the instructions so many times that your box of belief only goes so far, and many of you will not go past it. Because to go past the box of belief is to betray those who gave you the belief, who told you the way to think, who gave you information which is the best they could do. But now you're starting to break out of it and ask the questions. Questions that should always have been asked. Is something bigger than what I was told? Is it possible that I could live longer and control it by myself? How many of you have sat in the dark and thought, I'm bigger. I know things. When I take my last breath, I'll continue. That's intrinsic. That, dear ones, is self-evident, because that is what your soul tells you. When you get to this planet, born magnificent, how long does it take for you to absorb a consciousness of being a victim? How long does it take for you then to absorb a consciousness that will say, well, God doesn't love you really that much because you were born dirty, you see. And then you know if you do the wrong thing, you're going to be punished. Not just now, but forever, because you have a beautiful, loving God who created you that way. And you start asking questions. That doesn't sound right. And yet for some, it doesn't matter, because they still believe it because that's what they were told, even though it doesn't make sense, even though it doesn't sound right. And that's what's starting to change on this planet. I'll call it again, spiritual logic. God loves you so much. You are a child of God. There will be no punishment, dear ones, because there's nothing you're doing wrong. In your magnificence, you are living the best you can and measuring energy as you go. You're fighting darkness and trying to create light. You're doing the best you can in a world that is starting to change, where light is starting to win and darkness is starting to lose. And in this, you are the hero. And in this, you are loved greatly. You are not a victim of anything but your own beliefs, a victim of your own fears that creep up only because of what you were told, not because of what is, not because of the majesty that is you. That's what's happening. The human is becoming multidimensional because the light is starting to be turned on. And the consciousness that is changing on the planet is because of this. There's a lot of the planet would never sit in a room like this, ever. Would never believe what you believe, and they're changing as well. They might not say why or how. They didn't have to have instructions or listening to channeling. They're just self-aware. The things are changing, and they want better things. They want more integrity. They want better leadership. They don't want war. And in the best they can, they will go out and clean up those things which don't look good to them anymore. The environment, others, situations, corporations, pharmaceutical institutions, banks, politics, everything falls in that category. Awakening. Multidimensionality is going to create systems that you've never seen. The intellectual will say, well, we have sat around in our think tanks and we have thought of any possible system that might be better than what we have. In the box that you're in, of course. As soon as you become multidimensional, even break out a little bit further from 4, the thing that starts to occur to you is not intelligence, it's the wisdom of grander, fairer systems. Systems of government, systems of health, systems of environmental cleanup. They all start to occur with higher consciousness, and what is the teller of this is that the planet will listen, and they never have before. Welcome to new consciousness. Dear ones, it's going to happen slowly. Too slow for some of you, who will wring your hands in frustration and say, there's a little light, we can see it, and there are some listening, but not many. I'll tell you, you've got time. Eventually, the planet will all be on board with certain things right now that only you are on board with. And you know what I'm talking about. For some of you are even here. There are integrity issues yet to be exposed that will start happening where the light will shine into dark places and expose things you didn't even know were happening. And you'll begin to clean them up. Humanity wants light. That's different. That's different. Because that was not always the case. In a low consciousness earth, that was not always the case. And now you're starting to see a corner being turned. Your one's old souls are the key, and we'll say this again. The old soul has a grander knowledge that is intuitive. That things can be changed because you have the wisdom of the past and you've seen it before, but not like this. It's grand, dear ones. Grander than you can even believe, and you've got so much help. I close with this. In this great continent of Australia, I've given many messages, and one, I've told you about the souls that leave and come. I've told you about a system on this earth that is grand beyond belief, that is never taught in any institution. And it goes like this. If the soul is energy, if consciousness is energy, where does it go? The scientists will say, well, it goes somewhere else. Perhaps back to the universe, into the ethers. Does that sound like a wonderful plan to you? Does it sound sacred to you? Or does it sound like they're guessing? And we told you of the system. You have to understand that multidimensional things are not obvious to you. And one of them is how in the world you could have a soul in so many places at the same time with an identity of various humans. And we've told you this is the plan. This is the system. When someone takes their last breath, they stay with you until yours. They change form. But the consciousness that was them, it's almost like it was pasted to you. Some of you can smell them. Some of you can see them. And some of you have nothing but horror and mourning, not understanding that they're always there with their hand out saying, look at this, look at this, look at this. Stop mourning, stop with the fear. I'm still here, I'm still here. You will do this for your children and for your loved ones like they have done it for you. It is a beautiful system. And you will argue, and even the spiritual intellectual will say, hang on, Kryon. How can you have a soul go across the veil and incarnate and come back as another human being and still be with you? Doesn't make sense. And you're right. Not in 4D, it does. Not to the intellectual spiritualist who has to put everything in a box and say that that's all there is. It's so grand and so multidimensional and so wide open and so beautiful. And I want to just say it again. There is so much more here for you than you ever knew, to comfort you, to give you healing, to sing to you when you're sad. It's all here, and it's all in the dimensions that circle you right now. whether you perceive them or not. Leave here differently than you came. Leave here saying, I want to perceive these things. And the more you say that, the more the body listens, and the more the universe starts to cooperate, and the more your soul smiles and says, it's about time. This is the message of Kryon. The same one as last week. It's the same one as the week before. And it's been the same for 30 years. The human being deserves this. And so it is.